From Central Florida, of course, it's blue, but you have a lot of success, a lot of fans, considering Central Florida is one of the more blue areas of the state. But people like what they're hearing from you. One of the things is the property taxes. Tell us more about that.
Well, this has been the crunch for Florida residents, that we've had a boom in property values, which there's some benefits to that, obviously, because your house is worth more, but then your value gets assessed and you get a bigger property tax bill. And that's true even if you have the homestead protection, because they still let it go up. So you do those cumulative increases over 3, 4, 5 years when we've seen property values go up and homeowners want relief. So that's the #1 way we can provide Floridians with really meaningful tax relief. Like, look, we've cut taxes in a variety of ways. I mean, I did the 50% rebate on the commuter tolls, which is very impactful for people in Central Florida because you guys have tolls all over the place. We've cut taxes, permanent exclusion for baby items. We do our back to school sales tax holiday. We do all that, and that's great, and I'm happy with that. But man, these property taxes are what people want to see action on. So far, the Florida House of Representatives has not been interested in pursuing property tax relief. I think that's a mistake. I think that's a failure to listen to the voters.
You also tried to get them to do a special session on the condo fees. They refused. You were trying to advocate for people who are struggling with those HOA fees that have gone up. We have residents in Volusia on the coast there, not sure what to do. What are your thoughts on that?
The Florida House of Representatives needs to provide relief for our condo owners. Remember, these assessments are as a result of a law that they passed in the wake of Surfside. And while it was well intended, it has created these consequences. So you have seniors on fixed income in relatively modest condos, and they're supposed to cough up $100,000 all of a sudden. So there needs to be a reform, and I called for this to be done in January, and the Speaker of the House refused to act on it. The House has not advanced anything meaningful as of now. The session's going to end at the end of next week, so I'm hoping that they'll see the light. But how bad would it be if these guys leave Tallahassee having done nothing to address an issue that's very pressing for so many thousands of Florida residents, and not just in Central Florida, South Florida, Northeast Florida. You see it everywhere. And look, sometimes things happen, costs can go up. It's not like the government controls all that, but this is created by legislation. And so what they created, they should now provide relief.
Why are they doing that, knowing that people are demanding answers on these other issues?
Well, I think that's a question you have to ask them. I mean, I've been perplexed because I've been doing this now. This is my 7th legislative session since I've been governor, and this Florida House of Representatives is the least productive Florida House by a country mile that we have had, and that's a choice that they've made. I think a lot of their voters are unhappy with their lack of productivity. I know a lot of the individual rank and file members are getting grief, but a lot of this is driven by the leadership. So look, they've got less than 2 weeks. Maybe they can pull a rabbit out of their hat and start actually doing things that our voters want to see done.
You also talked about the economy here in Florida being #1 in Central Florida. We, of course, have the huge tourism industry. Now they're talking about the TDT tax, maybe using it for other things like I-4, road projects. What do you think about the tourist industry in Central Florida, how that money's being used, and how we can grow?
Well, one thing I would say is, we're going to have kind of the next chapter in Central Florida tourism next month when Epic Universe opens. I was there for the announcement, I think it was 2019. With the CEO of Comcast. I'm going to be there for the ribbon cutting. This has really taken the parks to the next level. I'm very excited about being able to do that. I'm trying to get down there to kind of look at it beforehand. I haven't been able to quite do that, but we're going to work on it. So I think that's going to add a really significant amount to the economy in Central Florida. Now, I can tell you, we've done our part in the state to advance major road projects. We just announced 8 months earlier the auxiliary lane in I-4 as construction is happening. We wanted to make sure there'd be a lane to keep traffic flowing. So that's from like Champions Gate area into Polk County, which that is a brutal stretch of traffic. And so that I-4 expansion, when done, is going to be good. And there have been a lot of other projects, Champions Gate, places in Polk County, where we've accelerated road projects. I did the Moving Florida Forward initiative initiative back in 2023. It's now probably over $7 billion that's been front loaded. And so some of these projects in Central Florida weren't even scheduled to break ground for another decade. We're now breaking ground, we're doing them, and so they're going to be delivered 5 or 10 years and sometimes 15 years ahead of schedule. It's hard to keep up because the growth has been strong, and I'm not asking anyone to move to Florida. We've got a lot of people, but it's a free country and people do move there, and it's an attractive place to live. So we're working hard to stay ahead of that. It's incidentally though, and I mentioned in my comments, the Florida House of Representatives is actually taking away about $500 million from our dock stamp revenue and putting it into general revenue. And the reason why that's important is because that money funds a lot of key projects, including projects in Central Florida. It's funding a lot of the projects on the Space Coast. When that money's there, they can then draw down additional money. So that would short circuit a lot of projects in Central Florida that have had wide support. I don't know why they're doing that. That wasn't what they campaigned on, but that is in their budget as of right now.
Something else you touched on today was Hope Florida. I'd like you to clear that up. It sounds like there's a lot of misunderstanding around it. Help us understand why they're saying that the money was used improperly and what the real situation is.
Well, first, Hope Florida is not a charity, which they're trying to talk about the affiliated charity, which has done a lot of good. But Hope Florida is our state program to utilize all the resources in community outside of government, our churches, our charities, our businesses, our individuals. So when people are in need, the job of the bureaucrat is now to be a navigator and help them navigate to all the resources, not just government resources. So my wife spearheaded our First Lady. It's now saved the taxpayers $100 million, and it's gotten 30,000 people off of means-tested welfare. That's a success story, and I think these are political attacks where they're trying to impugn that, and that's totally unfair and unnecessary. Now, what they're trying to say is our Agency for Healthcare Administration did a settlement with a group, one of the Medicaid providers, Centene, last year, and basically they were trying to say, oh, well, they gave money to the charity, and they were trying to say, and then what happened yesterday? The agency produced the underlying documentation. There was a $56 million agreement to recoup the Medicaid funds, and then Centene agreed to do a $10 million private donation to the DSO affiliated with Department of Children and Families. Totally appropriate. It advanced the state's interests, and I think people know that, but I think what they're trying to do is throw up smoke to try to impugn Hope Florida, because I think they view it as a threat. I think they view the First Lady as a threat politically, and so that's where this is all coming from. But Hope Florida has been a huge success. We're going to be announcing expansions of the program to help single moms with child care. We're also going to be announcing expansions of the program to help parents who have children with unique learning abilities, because there's a lot of resources in our communities exterior to government that want to be helped. And that's the thing. What Hope Florida is at the end of the day is using government to link people to resources in their community. So many people don't know these resources there. I mean, I remember when I was leaving the military, you get a packet and it was like bureaucracy. You didn't even know. Like, I didn't really need anything, but people that need it. So Hope Florida really serves to be a navigator to help people in need get resources outside of government.
So will the First Lady run?
Well, I think there's a lot of people that would like to see that. I think there's people, obviously, that are threatened by that. And I think that's why you're seeing a lot of this stuff be manufactured. But here's what I would say. If you look at the Florida House of Representatives and what they've done, there's a lot of voters that have been really excited about the success of Florida. They want to see it continue. Just know there's a Tallahassee swamp. They want to go back to the good old days. They don't want to see a lot of the positives that have happened. And I think the Florida House leadership is an example of one direction Florida can take. And why you would want to go back on the success and progress, I don't know, but that seems to be what they want to do. So that'll be the choice, I think, for voters in 26, particularly on the Republican side, is, do you want to build off the success, or do you want to follow kind of the blueprint that the Florida House has provided, where they're really trying to sabotage the success?
There's also people who say they'd like to see you run for president again. Is that a possibility?
I got a lot of stuff on my hands. We've been there, done that, got the T-shirt, but we do have a lot on our hands. I've got to make sure that this state continues to go in a very good direction, and so I've got my hands full for the next 2 years.
You also mentioned today Woken Education in our county, Brevard County. There's a teacher that has been that they want to not renew her contract because of her using a name that she shouldn't have, and it's against the law, parents, on either side of it. What are your thoughts?
So here's the thing. Our schools should be about education, not indoctrination. Some of these woke items don't have a place in education. As a parent, if that's something that you believe in, obviously you're free to rear your kids. But most parents do not want to send their kid to elementary school and have them be taught like things like transgender and gender fluidity. It's just not appropriate. So I think Florida has really stood on the side of parents. Let's make education the classical mission of what schools should do. It should be to educate, not indoctrinate. We always got to fight here or there with the school boards. I get that, but we've really set the standard. And a lot of people have moved to Florida because they fled some of these schools and some of these other places. And I'm proud to say for 2 years in a row, U.S. News and World Report ranked Florida #1 in education.
Education and the economy. Any thoughts on these tariffs, the tariff wars with China? If you were president, would you have handled things like this?
Well, what I'd say about this is I think it's a moving target. I think this is very fluid. I think you're going to probably land somewhere different than where you are now. You see the market gyrations, which obviously can spook people. I do think there's a lot of uncertainty where, some people may like tariffs, some people may not, but like business, just tell me what the rules are going to be. And so once they arrive, maybe after the end of the 90-day period where they've done the deals, people know what the rules are, I think that'll provide a lot of assurance. But my recommendation would be try to negotiate as many deals as possible. Let's expand access to these foreign markets for our producers. President's been speaking about that for decades. I mean, back in the 80s, he was talking about how Japan wouldn't let us sell cars in there. So if he can use this as a way to leverage more access for American companies to sell products into these foreign countries, I think it'll end up being a success. But I do think there's a lot of hesitancy right now in the economy, certainly in Florida. People just aren't sure kind of how it's going to shake out. And I know it will shake out, and I have confidence it'll be brought in for a landing that'll ultimately hopefully be good.
The other big thing is immigration. What are your thoughts? Florida judge saying that they're not going to go with this immigration situation. What are your thoughts?
Well, we're now in a situation in this country where judges are basically running immigration policy. So remember, Biden allowed the border to be open. He wasn't enforcing the law, and these judges would say, oh, well, a state can't go in and enforce the law. So they gave a blank check for Biden not to enforce the law. Now you have a new administration, the Trump administration, that wants to enforce it, and they're throwing sand in the gears in that. So it's kind of like heads they win, tails I lose. That's not the way this should be done. We have the right to make sure that the laws are enforced. Some of the people that they're in the courts, some of these people are parts of like gang members and stuff. Like, why would they have more? It's almost like they have more due process than an American citizen with some of these judges. So I do think there's a concerted effort to kneecap immigration enforcement. I'm proud of the work that we've done. We've been the leading state working with the federal government on doing these operations, and our agencies have cataloged. I mean, there have been some really questionable folks who were taken off the street and ultimately sent back. But we stand ready, willing, and able to be good partners with the Trump administration on immigration.
Any final thoughts you have?
Well, look, I think that if you look at Central Florida, there's a lot of great possibilities. I'm really excited about Epic Universe. I'm excited about what's in store, and we just need to keep it going. They can count on me to be supportive of the infrastructure that is needed to keep Central Florida moving. I don't want to see people stuck in traffic forever. We're accelerating those projects as quickly as possible and doing it quicker than anyone thought possible.
Governor, thank you.